Wow. Eerily quiet. Wow. Our chatters are there. They're chatting away.
Mhm.
Eerily quiet. Wow. Hi, everybody. It's Monday, and you are here on Pop in Politics with us tonight. You just saw that opening clip, and we're going to talk about it. Of course, everybody's talking about the assassination attempt, the third, or some people are calling it the fourth assassination attempt against President Donald J. Trump. Well, first, before we start, we have Nicole with us tonight, of course.
Hey, y'all.
And we have back with us again Blanca T, one of our recurring guests. Thank you all for being here. Hi, Blanca.
Hi, everyone.
Great. And of course, we have all of you out there in chat land, our super chatters. KJ is out tonight. She has another engagement. She's just lollygagging, but we'll just say she's out with another engagement. But I'm here, Shirley E., of course, with my inimitable, competent team, of course, here. We're going to talk about the White House Correspondents' Dinner 2026, the first one that President Trump attended. And would you know, another assassination attempt. Before we jump into this, let me let our super chatters know about our websites, how they can get in touch with us. Remember, we have a Discord channel. We have a website, metroconservativemedia.com. And of course, here at Pop in Politics, you can go to YouTube, share, like, and subscribe. We have other platforms that we're going to mention later. We have merchandise. We have all of that. But tonight, let's get into this topic. Ladies, what did you think when you saw not just that clip, but over the last couple of days? What's been going through your mind?
Do you know what I thought initially when I heard about it? Because some friends contacted me and said, "Hey, there was a shooting at the White House Correspondents' Center," and I was like, "A shooting?" It just didn't seem real, right? Especially considering the number of our line of succession that was at that dinner together. So that kind of scared me. But once I saw some of the video online, it seemed to me that the Secret Service did what it needed to do. Metro Police did what they needed to do, and the situation was well in hand. In fact, there are several videos of people who didn't hear the shots, who were just sitting at the table eating. They didn't know what was going on. So shout out to the law enforcement officers that kept that crowd safe.
Right. What about you, Blanca?
Well, when this was happening live, I was actually on the phone with someone discussing the crime in Baltimore City. We were in the middle of a conversation, really planning out when would be a good time, because Southeast Baltimore has seen a spike in crime, and
Okay.
severe enough that we wanted to collaborate for a meeting. And my husband in the other room said, "Blanca, there's police at the correspondence dinner." I said, "What? There's police? There's something happening." And so we did see that live. Obviously, we saw what everyone else saw. But my
Right.
first thought was that here we are again facing the same evil, hateful, and really unhinged. I call it the unhinged left,
Yep.
which can't get it
Let's
right.
Right. Let's talk about that unhinged leftist rhetoric. Of course, we have here we are on Saturday. I don't like to say their names, but I'll say his name for the purpose of giving a little bit of background. We have Mr. Cole Allen, a 31-year-old school teacher, former parent teacher, a mechanical engineer. He's also supposedly, he was educated at Caltech, but he traveled all the way from California to Washington, D.C., booking this room at the Hilton Hotel there, this huge ballroom, huge hotel, very famous or infamous hotel. He booked it sometime earlier this month, but he checked in on Friday. Now, he checked in with the purpose, allegedly, of shooting and killing President Trump. Of course, he had this manifesto, but again, let's talk a little bit about, before we talk about the specific events that occurred, let's talk about, again, he is a man of the left, okay? We want to talk a little bit about how this keeps happening, these assassination attempts, and how, as it relates to these, what we call radicals. I call them just evil. They are, radicals are made, they're not born. So, Blanca, as concise as you can be, how do people become radicalized into the left, into believing that it is okay for them to kill people?
Okay. Well, since I work with people that have been vindictive in their ways, I work with people like this. Okay. I work with people that will not, this is how it happens, I think, just in a 1, 2, and 3 step. First, they want to deny reality. They want to not accept who is the president. That's the first thing. So if I can deny what is, I'm on the right track, they believe. Second, if I can find the other nutcases that I can jump in the basket with, then we have a team. And the third thing, which is horrific and deadly, then the planning happens to how, in their mind, deal with the threat.
Yeah. Wow. That's pretty concise. And apparently, again, we have seen several attempts against President Donald Trump, but over the years, we've seen these mostly 99% of the time left-wing lunatics take the authority, if you will, the same authority that they claim other people have in wanting to be dictators or a godlike complex, but they seem to think that doesn't apply to them. Nicole, radicalization is closely tied with political beliefs or the opposite, if you will, of those beliefs, whatever your beliefs may be. But again, we know it happens like Blanca laid out, but how is that so? How does it keep happening? How come we have not, I guess, learned or maybe even shored up at the specific areas where high officials may be? What's going on? What is it about this that we're not getting?
They haven't learned the lesson. They haven't learned the lesson because if you take a hard look at it, there really have not been any consequences. Yes, they'll catch a shooter or the shooter is killed, but what about that shooter's network? What about all of the people who knew? What about the person, as good as they are about tracking down people who own guns and who bought the gun and how they got their hands on a gun? They should call Maryland State Police, because Maryland State Police has this skill where they can just look at you and tell your gun was grandfathered in. I mean, they have not really put their foot down with people who are on the other side of the law. In fact, they've doubled down on dumb. We saw Jimmy Kimmel talking about Melania Trump looked like a glowing widow or some kind of foolishness on his show. The ladies of The View spewing hate. Then you have this guy that's going around talking about killing Donald Trump would be a great thing. Then you have school teachers, then nurses. So when people only have one source of information, and that source of information benefits from radicalize them, they continue to feed the monster until the monster acts out. And then they all go, well, it wasn't our monster. It's mental illness, or it's a gun. It's everything except for their responsibility. I don't only blame them. I blame us too, because we haven't put the hammer down, and we need to put the hammer down on these folks.
Well, the guest on Morning Joe said pretty much the same thing, Nicole. Let's see clip number 1.
An accomplished, articulate person with a loving family, apparently, who went down a path of radicalization. And the reason we know that is he's written a 1,000-word document where he describes exactly why he did this. And he describes President Trump as a pedophile and a rapist. He doesn't explicitly say he was targeting Donald Trump, but he says he was targeting Trump administration officials. He apologizes to his family in this post. There's some evidence that he attended or was associated with a No Kings protest. So it really fits the pattern of what we've seen with Luigi Mangione, accused of killing the United Healthcare CEO, or Tyler Robinson, accused of killing Charlie Kirk, of this sort of people on the far left fringes who have become radicalized, who are living in a world of unreality, bombarded by conspiracy theories, who decide that they have to take violent action. And it's contributing to a climate of political violence in this country that we have not seen since the 1960s. So more questions will be asked, and you know, the FBI is poring over this man's writings and his social media. They served a search warrant on it. They were at his house in Torrance, California yesterday. So a lot more investigation still being done. But that 1,000-word document that's been widely published, and Donald Trump commented on it last night on 60 Minutes. That says a lot about and explains a lot about what appear to be the motives.
He's exactly right. So let me give you a little bit of information as far as a timeline, some of these political violent incidents that's happened, particularly since, even before Charlie Kirk. ABC News has published a timeline, if you will. They go back to 2011 in January when they start at Representative Gabrielle Giffords, who was wounded in Tucson from, again, a left-wing radical, if you will. Let's go a little bit further. We have Representative Steve Scalise was shot as well. We have a plot, if you will, they mentioned against Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Let's bring it a little bit closer to the late 2020s, if you will, 2022. There was a Kentucky mayoral candidate that was targeted in an attempted shooting. Again, what do these things have in common? These are all political figures, okay? We have also recently Charlie Kirk in 2025. We've had President Trump has had another attempt at Mar-a-Lago, which is another assassination attempt, but I think that was in September 2024, if I'm not mistaken. And of course, we have this weekend. Again, there are some others that are mentioned as far as the timeline, but the key thing is that these are political acts of violence against political figures, number one. And many of these nuts, if you will, and that's putting it mildly, many of them have been or were educated in what we like to call elite institutions. I believe it starts there. I think the academic environment of today, and certainly within the maybe the early 2000s or a little bit before, the academic environment is so left, not even liberal. Again, I make the distinction, not even liberal. It's so left that this becomes a worldview. These ideologies, they're not just doctrines or they're not just academic theories. They are put into action and they are actionable to the people who succumb, if you will, or who take these worldviews on, and they believe that this is what they're supposed to do. Blanca, what do you think? What do you think about this radicalization? And I know you mentioned the specific that you mentioned, but what about academia's role directly into this?
Okay, well, let me give you an example that is life experience is one of the greatest teachers, and it's also one of the greatest billboards, because why? It happened to you, it impacted you, and then you have an idea, and then you can share that idea. In 2020, I'm working at a Baltimore City public school. 2020 happened to be an election year. Did the teacher acknowledge that there was going to be an election? Oh, yes. Oh, yes, she did. And you know what she said? That we are going to have a new president this fall. To 4-year-olds, what do they know about election and registering? What do they know, right? So it starts there because, see, I mean, we know from history that he who holds the narrative and he who holds that cradle is going to rule the world. In the minds of these children, it was, very biased. It wasn't that we were going to have an election and there's a process and there's a teaching, right? No, for her, we're going to have a new president because The current one at that point was not going to be elected in her mind. And so it starts young. And also, another thing that I have found is more recently is when a couple in your own household doesn't share the view. We're not talking about religious. We're not talking about, one believes and one is an unbeliever. Sometimes that's less dangerous than somebody's ideology, because I know people that have separated because of how they voted. That is to me. So now you have the home, the second the second place that most children spend time in for the first 18 years is school. And so now you have an institution and another institution. And when you have an institution that is not coming together, that child is basically saying, oh, I am to hate someone. Tell me who it is.
Well, Nicole, before you respond, I want you to see clip number 2, because kind of what Blanca is saying, teachers, educators are indoctrinating our young people, and they think they have to act on this indoctrination. Not only that, the media fuels it as well. Take a look at clip number 2, Nicole, and I want you to respond to this.
Our First Lady Melania is here. Look at Melania, so beautiful. Mrs. Trump, you have a glow like an expectant widow.
Can we play that again, producer? I know it was short, but I want to play it again just for emphasis.
Our First Lady Melania is here. Look at Melania, so beautiful. Mrs. Trump, you have a glow like an expectant widow.
Wow. Nicole, what say you?
So Jimmy Kimmel hasn't been funny since probably 84. I think that was the last time that they didn't have to pull out a laugh track to play it over top of the stunned studio audience. It's that kind of rhetoric mixed in with, and I agree with you, Shirley, and Blanca as well. By the time our kids get to college, they are open to alternative ideas. And, Shirley and Blanca, when we all went to college, they did teach us some counter US theories. But it was simply that. It was a theory. It was nothing that we would ever act upon. It was really just to give us an understanding of how the other side of the world thinks and why it doesn't work. Well, what these kids are hearing, because they've been indoctrinated since they're 4 years old, this is the key. This is how I level the playing field. I'm fighting, you hear this all the time, for Palestine. These people wouldn't make it a day in the Middle East. These pretentious kids walking around with $4,000 cell phones in their pocket, $2,000 worth of earbuds, and haven't missed a meal, never been cold, never been hot, unless they've chosen to be at these $100,000 a year universities. They really think that they have their finger on the pulse of what's going on in the Middle East simply because some bored teacher brought out some theory from the 40s and they think it sounds cool. What ends up happening is when they hear that enough, and because our children don't have a patriotic upbringing, they're not saying the Pledge of Allegiance, they're not learning about American history outside of the things that they can use to divide us, it sounds like a great idea. I mean, listen, communism sounds great unless it's your stuff they're taking. If you're on the bottom of the food chain, yeah, give me a little bit of Blanca stuff. I'll take a little Shirley E stuff too. Right. It's all good until it gets to you. That's the part they're not teaching them. So when young people hear this and they hear it a steady drumbeat, if you watch network news, you hear it constantly. Some of these podcasts are just as sick as Jimmy Kimmel. So they're radicalizing these people and they're giving them an out. Because listen, Don Lemon should have been routinely dragged for what he did in that church by every corner of the American media. They hold him up to be a hero. So when you see that, if I'm the guy who kills Trump, man, I'm a national hero. People are going to love me. Not I'm going to federal prison for the rest of my life for taking an attempt on the president's life. They just don't get it. It doesn't excuse the behavior. Right. They just don't get it.
Yeah, they don't get it. And because this is so normalized, it becomes like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. Not only that, many times it's almost a slap on the hands, if that. And I'm not talking about the people who are attempting assassination. I'm talking about just the regular folk online issuing vile things. Again, I'm a free speech advocate, but there are some limits. When you start issuing threats against people, when you start saying that you're going to kill them, literally, people have said that. When you start just making vicious, illegal threats against people's lives and livelihoods, it becomes normalized when nothing happens to you. That's number one. To her credit, First Lady Melania Trump issued a scathing response to funny Jimmy Kimmel and ABC, saying that Americans, should not have to put up with this every night. Well, one thing Americans can do, number one, is turn off the TV. That's number one.
Absolutely.
That's certainly we can do that. Number two, if we want to petition, if you will, ABC or anyone else, please do so. If you feel led to advocate that the threats, that's basically what it was. It was a veiled threat that Jimmy Kimmel was making. If you feel like issuing a petition or a response to ABC, please do so. But Nicole, along the lines of what you're saying, like young people, not only are young people being indoctrinated to do violence, they are threatening people, other young people. Let me look at clip number 3 and let Nick Shirley tell you a little bit of what he's going through. Do we have clip 3?
Real. Like, for instance, last time I was in California, a few trips back, people were trying to dox my location live. I was at a hotel, and people were up on Reddit group chats saying where I was staying. And it's happened a few times now, so it's like almost even dangerous for me to go stay at hotels because you can get doxed really quick and people come and find out where you're at. You get constant death threats from people. The fraudsters are angry. In fact, yeah, they're very angry. I've had death threats, and one of them was even very specific about the date. It's actually supposed to be coming up very soon, the date that they said they'd kill me. So that was interesting. And you just get all these death threats, you get doxing. But the majority of the public are very thankful. Like, when I'm out in public, so many people come up to me and say thank you. It's actually interesting, at Sacramento, when I was just there, so many people were saying thank you. But the people inside the building, they all hate me because I'm exposing their corruption. But the people love me.
Again, so just for exposing corruption, okay, that's all of our tax dollars, exposing corruption, calling out the wrongdoing, again, by these protected groups, if you will, these groups that give kickbacks to mostly the Democratic Party and their ilk. This man has been doxxed and his life threatened, if you will. Doxing should be illegal. I thought it was illegal to do that, but I guess the laws vary from state to state. The laws vary from state to state. But people, none of us has a right. You don't have a right to know where someone lives and you want to put them and their families in danger just because you don't agree with their ideology or their beliefs or whatever the case may be. This is why we have a public square, number one. Number two, you have your opinion, they have theirs. Leave it at that. So what? Nobody, I don't know what with this generation is so coddled that they were trained to believe that everybody has to like them and agree with everything they say and do. No, they don't. Like Blanca said, real life does not work like that. It's the best teacher. And my wish for all of these left-wing nuts, lunatics, crazy, my hope and my prayer, this is a prayer I'm going to extend. My prayer is that you get hemmed up, you are caught, and I would ask for the death penalty. I would ask for the death penalty for you because you are attempting, and in some cases you have succeeded. Charlie Kirk, rest in peace. You have succeeded in your worldview being carried out. One more thing. I liken these radicals equally with the terrorists, Islamic terrorists. They are as willing to sacrifice themselves, if you will, to become martyrs for their cause, just as much as the Islamic terrorists. Am I wrong? Am I off, Blanca, anywhere?
I don't think so, because I was thinking there is nothing more terrifying than having a domestic terrorist. Why? Because they already know your footprint. They know your life pattern. They know they can get to you. You know, it's truly, somebody can get to any of us much quicker than a stranger who wants to perhaps cause any kind of damage or harm, maiming of an individual just because of their religious, we know what Islam is, okay? We're not talking about Muslims. We're talking about Islam. We're talking about the ideology that says specifically there is a threat. And I want to also add before you go to the next topic or conversation, and that is, I disagreed with Biden's policies,
Mhm.
but I never wished him dead. You know what
Exactly.
I did? You know what I did and what we did as a family when we heard he had cancer and was metastasized in the bone? We
Mhm.
prayed for him. Okay? We prayed for him. We did not wish him ill. We didn't say, take him, Lord, it'll be a one less person. Why? And this is where light, like Nick Shirley, light does three things. Light disinfects, it
Mhm.
exposes, and it also establishes people. And that is what people are not. People are not, they are dirty, they are not, they're evil, and their deeds, they're known by their deeds.
Mhm.
Because this is not normal to want to have someone else dead because you believe that that is what should happen to them. You're almost saying, I hold the power of life and death. I mean, we already know that, the left don't, you're not safe in the womb with the left. You're not safe in the bathroom. You're not safe in the bedroom. You're not safe in the classroom. So now we're going to the boardroom, and we've gone to even to the White House, where our leader has to really carefully move and live and work about doing the work of the people. We elected him. And even when Biden was in office, it wasn't about let's neutralize him. You didn't hear that. Nobody talked about neutralizing him.
Well, I
No,
agree, Blanca.
you didn't hear. You said you didn't hear it right. But if I want to ask you a slightly different question, because you talked about it in the beginning. Just touching bases on this before we move on. The actual shooting at the White House Correspondents' Dinner at the Hilton Hotel, talking about this, just the security all around. You said we haven't learned our lesson. What should have been done better than what it was? Now, having also give credit to that. Thankfully, no one was killed, no one was murdered. There was an officer, a Secret Service officer, who took a hit. I think he was wearing protective gear, so it looks like he's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So I will say this: the best thing that could have happened is that maybe Barack Obama would have decided to build the ballroom, because having an event with the president, with the vice president, the secretary of state, the secretary of war, the secretary of agriculture, with having that much of our line of succession in one place needs to be much more secure. Now, the Hilton Hotel, that ballroom was locked down well before the president arrived. And if you live in the DMV, if you live in the swamp, you know, if the president is going to be somewhere, they lock that area down. The traffic does not move until he is calm and in place, and all of his security is in place. And even then, they're checking not just the bottom of your car, not just the inside of your car. They're going through all of the bags in your car. They're asking you, even if you're a ticket holder for an event, what are you doing here? They really go the extra mile because of the threats that have happened to him. But we need a secure ballroom. You know, we can't let the crazies change our way of life. We can't let the crazy people tell us that we can't go out, that we can't have nice dinners, that the president can't attend, that the vice president can't attend. We need a secure ballroom. And Shelley, you've been to the White House in what they call the ballroom. It's like 6 little rooms. And if you have more than 150 people, thinking of Black History Month and Women's History Month, there are so many people. There are people in the vestibule. Every room is crowded with people. The overflow rooms have people because we just don't have an appropriate sized venue with the appropriate security to house a dinner like this. So hopefully, you know, I know they're saying no to the ballroom, but something has got to give. The Hilton locked down that ballroom. They did a great job, but we were having too many of our line of succession in one place inside of a public hotel with people coming and going in the heart of DC. And that just can't happen.
Yeah, I thought something similar. I'd say, well, number one, it's very rare that you have the whole cabinet pretty much
Mm-hmm.
and other dignitaries, if you will, there in one setting. Outside of a
Mm-hmm.
state dinner or inauguration ball, you rarely see that, number one. Of course, the president himself, his whole entourage is already, security level. But I think that there's some problems and challenges in the Secret Services as well, as far as the staffing, if you will, the logistics, some of the planning, I think that fell through. So I think I guess her name was Susie Wiles and other chiefs they have to take a look at that. They have to take a look at that going forward, because unfortunately, the left has wanted President Trump dead for a long time, and they are going to keep trying. We've talked about it on this show before. We've said the same thing, and they are going to keep trying. But all you out there in chat land, let us know what you think. Sorry about that little glitch. I don't know what happened. There's always some little people in these in this technology that they do their own thing. But nevertheless, go ahead and hit that like, share, and subscribe button. We need your comments. We want your super chats. We will read your super chats on air live as soon as you put them in. Don't forget, we also have merchandise. Nicole's going to talk about that. But we also have a website, media.com, and a Discord channel. So go ahead, again, hit that like, share, and subscribe. And Nicole,
listen, it is time, everybody. Spring has sprung, especially here in the DMV. Please, please, please consider buying some merchandise. It's a great way to support the show, and you will look great while doing it. I've probably been to, I think at this point, 8 or 9 A250 events. And with it being an election year, especially here in Maryland, everybody and their mother's having an event. We've got a big event this weekend on the Eastern Shore. 2 or 3 of our central committees are getting together and throwing a red, white, and country party with live music. And I'm looking forward to it. And guess what I'm wearing? Give me my money back. I'm wearing give me my money back in my cowboy boots and some other patriotic things. The perfect outfit. Everybody, get your merch now. With this attempt on President Trump's life, what I'm looking forward to is after every time there's an issue where Americans feel kind of like something horrible could happen, the one thing that we run back to is this. We run back to the flag, right? Everybody hunkers down on being a better American. You can get a shirt, especially unapologetically American, and put your heart on your sleeve, quite literally. So please consider purchasing some of our merch. There are lots of things. There are bags, there are pillows, there are stickers if you're not so much of a t-shirt person. But take a picture in the merch, send it to us, and we'll make sure that you make the show.
All right, moving on to another topic. We're still talking about crime. This time we're going to bring it to one of our states, or certainly one of our major cities, New York City, the violence in there. And that's happening in New York City. That's been happening, unfortunately. So this weekend, unfortunately, again, a bodega owner was shot and he died. He was killed, murdered on the streets outside of his bodega. This bodega owner, you all probably remember, he was in the news last year because he was speaking about the crime taking place in New York City, particularly among the bodega owners all throughout New York City. Let's take a look at clip number 4, and then I'll get you ladies to chime in on this.
With Eyewitness News a year ago, saying he worried about violence against bodega workers he'd seen on social media.
People got shot, killed, sometimes got robbed, and the police never responds quick.
Tonight, the organization is wondering if the person who shot Abdul Salah was someone who shouldn't have been on the spoke with.
Looks like we had some technical difficulties.
Did we have the clip? Can we
news a year ago, saying he worried about violence against bodega workers he'd seen on social media.
People got shot, killed, sometimes got robbed, and the police never responds quick.
Tonight, the organization is wondering if the person who shot Abdul Salah was someone who shouldn't have been on the.
Okay, so I guess we might see it again, but not right now. I'll go ahead and give you some information. So in 2025, Abdul Salah, he made the news in New York City talking about the violence happening amongst the bodega owners in the city. Now, they are represented, I think, by a union of bodega owners that advocate for them, for their safety, their commerce and other issues that are specifically related to the bodega owners. Well, the bodega owners are plentiful in New York City. If you ever gone there, you see them almost every corner, every block. And they're just selling their wares. They're running their businesses. Well, again, Mr. Salah here, Abdul Salah, unfortunately was shot and murdered over the weekend. He and another guy, I'm not sure about the other guy, his status, but Salah died. Salah died. What makes this upsetting is that, again, there seems to not be much being said about this, in my opinion, by the mayor and other officials in New York City. To them, in my opinion, never to be humble opinion, life just goes on. Blanca, what the hell is going on when a person in your community like this, he has good reports. I've even read a report that said, the people said that he wouldn't even see people go hungry. If you paid for items or you didn't have enough money, he would go ahead and help you and give you, because that's how much invested he was in the community. What the hell is going on in New York City, Blanca?
Well, we know that when Mamdani was elected, we already knew that it was going to be a rapid, accelerated, all I can say is, downfall of crime was going to increase. Okay, when crime increases, businesses are not going to last. People will not go out. So the criminal element is not stupid. They are really aware that people are not going to shop. People are not going to sell. And so the streets have become, basically, it's a hijack situation. It's happening in Baltimore. People say crime is down here. It's not down. People are just not dying from being shot. This gentleman is 28 years old from Yemen. He actually went to Yemen for a couple of months, recently returned because his 2 children are in Yemen. So now there are 2 children who are fatherless. The United Bodegas of America, the union, which had a press conference last year, had 1 block away from his bodega, had a press conference to really motivate the elected officials to invest in panic buttons that could directly connect to the police department. And the president shared that in the recent news. This just happened Saturday. We're talking about 48 hours ago, 11:30 at night, and probably closing, the bodega, and it was him and his brother. And so they had this press conference to really garner that support that you would want for business, for people providing for themselves, and also providing a service to the community. That's out the window with socialism. Okay, that is not part of the socialism pattern plan. Also, a 16-year-old was killed the Friday before. 16-year-old Marquise Byfield was killed. 16 years old. And so now Mamdani did address the parent. Of course, the usual sorry, not sorry. We're going to do something. Sorry, we didn't. And now it's next. That's pretty much it. That's what's happening.
But Blanca, you said something. Nicole, I want to ask you this. But Blanca, you said, we keep hearing the crime is down, but it really isn't. Let me give you some stats from New York City. So this is according to the site called vitalcitynewyorkcity.org. All right. So all major crimes from 2019 to 2025, there has been an increase, or a plus 27.3%. So almost 30% increase over that period of time in all major crimes. The one that is down, the only one that, 2 of them are down from that same time period, 2019 to 2025, is murder and shootings. However, rape, felony assault, robbery, burglary, grand larceny, and grand larceny of vehicles. They are all up double and even triple digits, particularly grand larceny of motor vehicles. This is my question. We keep saying or hearing that crime is down. What I'm not sure about, because many of these crimes are tied to people being shot. They may be murdered or they may have serious injuries. I don't know if these stats are teasing out that factor. So I think this is part of it. They're not teasing it out, or they are teasing it out to make it look as if they're separate incidents. But Nicole, if we keep hearing that crime is down, how do we keep getting so many people, innocent people, shot and dying? How come they're not showing up in the numbers?
Well, it's a numbers game. I can make a statistic that proves anything. That's the beautiful thing about, using numbers to quantify things if you're not going to be honest. And honest depends on which side of the debate of defunding the police you sit on. I understood that the bodega owners were sick of being robbed, sick of being threatened, sick of being assaulted. And so their union spoke up and said, we need this emergency panic button. Well, what are they going to send? A social worker? Somebody to come over and try to talk this person out of, bashing you in the head with a bat for, some pretzels and maybe some scratch off cards. I mean, it's not the business owner's problem. It's not the bat that does the bashing. It's the heart of the man that does the dirty deed. And until you address that, we're going to have crime. People say, murder's down across the United States. Absolutely. In lots of places, murder is down. But call Chicago, where people are dropping dead. There were more people killed in Chicago over the weekend than there has been in this conflict in Iran. I mean, this is ridiculous here, and people don't bat an eye because it's expected. The reason why Zoran the moron had nothing to say significant about a 16-year-old being gunned down in his own city is because for them, they're expendable. Thoughts and prayers, move on to the next topic. That is how they live their lives. The disregard for human life, Blanca, you are right. It starts in the womb. Yeah. And if life has no value in the womb, when does life become valuable? When you're 7, maybe 14, 21, 40? When does life become valuable if you're a lunatic Democrat? Can I tell you it never does? Because you would not be running like a lunatic into a Hilton hotel thinking that you're going to speed past the Secret Service and Metro Police to go into a ballroom and take a shot at the President of the United States. Now, people will say that's, he has some mental illness. I'm just going to say he's dumb. He's not stupid, but he's definitely dumb. You're not that fast. And yes, he took off like a bullet, except for he could not outrun the people who were there to protect. So when we see these people talking about our crime statistics, they have been heavily manipulated. That's been proven time and time again. But what we really see on the ground is that it's not better. I mean, I myself was a victim of a shed robbery. This is unheard of in my neighborhood. Absolutely unheard of in my neighborhood. And Shirley will tell you, I was like, what in the world is going on in this world if you're going to break into my shed and steal my Ryobi? And I was angry for weeks, but I got over it because, it could have been worse. It could have been something more significant to me. But you see this little tiny petty crime that doesn't get punished, and that little tiny petty crime becomes a bigger and better crime and a bigger and better crime. This is why it's important that we nip it in the bud when it's small, but we'll never get there if they keep playing with these numbers like this.
So that's a good point, Nicole. They're playing with the numbers. We will never get there. You and Blanca both mentioned something to the fact that it begins with the heart of the human, the heart of the person. But we have all of these wraparound services, these wraparound programs, and most of these crimes that we hear about. Now, that doesn't mean that crime does not happen everywhere. It does. But many of these serious crimes, the robberies, the murders, the shootings, the grand larcenies, many of them are happening on the regular in mainly blue cities. Heavily blue cities and areas. And yet we cannot get our politicians, our elected officials, they want to keep coddling the criminal. So what in those cases, what are the average Americans to do? What are they to do?
Strap up.
I say strap up.
Strap up. Strap
I
up.
say
This
strap
is my.
up. Yeah, go ahead.
I agree with your policy 100%. You know, there are certain crimes when it's committed by a young teenager or a young person, and it's a crime of convenience. Do you know what I mean? Like they see a bike, they want a bike, impulse control, they jump on a bike and ride the bike. But that's not the kind of crime I'm talking about, little crime. I'm talking about when you use force to take something from someone else that other person worked hard for. That's the line. That's the line that we need to draw and say, okay, you're not getting enough of what this culture is supposed to be like. So you need an adult size timeout. We're going to sit you down, not probation, not an ankle bracelet, not wraparound services at somebody's, think tank that cost us $1 billion a year. None of that. Sometimes they just need to sit and contemplate and in very dangerous places so they can make an executive decision. How do I want my life to go? Do I want to be like this butt pirate that's sharing a cell with the guy next door? Or do I want to be a free man? And what is it going to take to get me free? I think those are hard questions, but we don't allow our children to make those or to have those conversations anymore. It's everybody gets a trophy. Everybody's good to go. Right. No matter what you do, we're going to protect you. And that is not the way it should be.
Blanca, on a little personal note, you can say as much as you want, of course, or not. But I mean, we've all had young children. But is there anything maybe that you have done or that you've done that's different that you see other maybe young people? How have you schooled your young children to these are the behaviors that are not acceptable? Or maybe you've taught them a different way. Or what is different about maybe what you do with your children that maybe other parents are not doing with their young children?
Well, let's start with what the structure is. There's a mom and dad in the home.
Mm-hmm.
There's a mom and a dad in the home. There isn't an adult in the home. It's a role. When you're a parent, that's not a job. I call it's not hard work to be a good parent. It's heart work. It's a very hard work. So first there's a mom and dad. That's the first thing. There was a mom and dad when I grew up, and there was a mom and dad when my mom grew up. And there was a mom and dad when my grandfather was born in 1914, and he lived to be 99. So imagine that. That's where we start. A lot of people don't want to hear that. Oh, well, wait a moment. I was adopted. So when people say, but my mom and dad both, one is, listen, I'm a product of my dad killing my mother when I was 3 and I was adopted. Parents came into my life. I came into theirs, and they were loving and caring. So people can't say to me, well, that's not everybody. Yeah, I had a terrible dad, and he had to go to prison. 6 years for murder in El Salvador. Can you imagine? 6 years for murder. 6. So the first thing is the family was caring. They modeled. They infused in me. Now I'm the parent. Yeah, it wasn't a pretty childhood. And then now I have 3 sons. We instill in them. There is a respect, not a submission, not a, bow down, not you're the child, I'm the parent. There is a respect for adults. That I think Shirley and Nicole, you can agree. Children are not being taught there's a respect for that adult, and that adult to also, so the respect to the adult, mutual respect, but also that adult needs to raise that child. Raising in respect.
Okay, so I'm gonna play the other side. So we hear all the time, again, these are young people, they don't have a mother and father at home. The Black community particularly the Black community, has 70+% of children out of wedlock. Now, we can't put the babies back and start over again, right? We can't do that. So what do we do with the young people, particularly who are here now committing these crimes? The politicians will tell us, oh, they need the wraparound services, they need this program. The judges will say, oh, no bail, they don't have to go to jail, they don't, let's just put them in a detention center and put an ankle bracelet on that doesn't work. Then you have the advocacy groups, who want us to just only feel compassion for them. What do we do now with these hardened young people who are committing what we would call adult crimes, if you will? I say adult crimes due to adult time. What about you, Nicole? Am I wrong? I mean, am I being too heartless?
No, you're not being too heartless. Listen, not everybody's going to make the trip. Let's just call it what it is. That's biblical. Not everybody is going to make the trip. There are some people, unfortunately, because of the decisions that they've made in their lives, it's going to impact them. If you kill another human being, if you maim another human being, you are not fit for our civilized society. You're simply not. So we're going to have to remove you from society. Whether you're 18 or 46, if you take another person's life, you have to go. We cannot tolerate you under any circumstances. And that's not being heartless and cruel to the criminal. That's saving the rest of society, which should be the goal of criminal justice. It should be protecting society. But today's criminal justice is about giving the criminal more justice than they deserve. Now, before children get to that point, we've seen these teen takeovers all over the place. And I had a chance to talk to a good friend who's running for office. And she was bouncing some ideas around with me about what she thinks is a good idea for the lack of juvenile justice that we have here. I said, let me tell you what they did when I was a kid. Your parents signed you up for this summer work program. You didn't know nothing about it. You got out of school. You thought it's going to be the summer of my life. I'm going to swim. I'm going to go to the park. I'm going to ride my bike. And your parent announced to you, no, tomorrow you're going to be a camp counselor. Get some sleep tonight because them little children are going to run you ragged. And you made a little pocket change and you made really good friends. And you did, become a camp counselor, or you work with public works and you cut grass. Children have to have purpose. I get it, especially here in Maryland where everything is expensive. They very well may have two parents in the home, but those two parents might have two jobs apiece in order to keep the lights on. So what do you do then? You have a teenager without any parental guidance in the home, although they have two parents living in the home. What happens then? Can I tell you? Keep these kids busy. Keep them busy. Sign them up for summer work. Summer work is a good thing. Work is great for the human mind. It gives you something, some sense of purpose, a sense of pride. Some of the most successful broadcasters here in the DMV started out, believe it or not, in a summer jobs program. In a summer jobs program, interning at Fox, interning at NBC, ABC, they gave the kids a chance to learn that industry, and it put a bug in their heart that they never left. They went to college, they did all these other things so they could work as broadcasters or cameramen or sound dudes, whatever it is. We have to give our children something other to do than run the streets. And that's just, sound parenting. That is just simply sound parenting.
Yeah. I want to add one thing. When I was growing up, maybe you all as well, I'm pretty sure, we had a healthy, I would call it a healthy fear. We had a healthy fear of God. We had a healthy fear of our parents and families, even single parents, if you will. We had a healthy fear. Adults. And we had a healthy fear of police. We had a healthy fear of the police. So pretty much in that order, right? So I don't think young people are getting that kind of instruction. They're not getting that. We had a healthy fear. We didn't want to have God upset with us, because my grandmother and older folk would say some things like, don't make God mad, something like that, something to that fact. You're going to make God mad, or God is ashamed of what you did, or something like that. But we don't have that anymore. Today, we don't have parents being parents. Yes, the young people are committing the acts, but it goes back to the parenting from the time they are born up until whatever time, they're able to be left alone by themselves, certainly. So I don't think we have that, what we would call largely the moral teaching for children growing up. They are largely raising themselves, and like the feral animals that any of us could and would be, this is what they are allowed to be. They are allowed to be feral in the home and outside the home, and they don't know any different because of the lack of training and teaching from their parents. It starts at the parenting. That's it, the bottom line. What say you in the chat lane? You all are quiet tonight. I know it's Monday. It's kind of the end of the month. Everybody's, taking a breath from this weekend. But we want to hear from you. Hit that like, share, and subscribe button on this platform. Don't forget, we also have other platforms in the Metro Conservative Media Network. We have Just the Guys, which airs on Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And we also have Christian Conservative, or KJ Christian Conservative on, help me out, Nicole, Sundays and Thursdays, right?
Thursday and Sunday, yes.
Thursdays and Sundays at 9 p.m. And of course, you have Poppin' Politics Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And here we are today. But hit that like, share, and subscribe. A couple more things. Don't forget, we have a Discord channel. We also have a metroconservativemedia.com website where you can get all of your merchandise that Nicole told you about, and she's going to tell you again. But in the meantime, you all are quiet tonight in the chat land. Shout out to all our mods out there. S-Files, Allie, Madeline, Yanni. I think I saw Josh earlier. I'm not sure. But Diamond, Mia, Liberty Girl, all of you out there, thank you for joining us tonight. Nicole, you want to tell them about the merchandise again? So, because they're quiet out there tonight.
I know, they're super quiet. Let me tell you, producers, can we get one of the hats? Because maybe the guys don't want a t-shirt. Maybe guys would prefer a hat of sorts. I know we have them on there. This is how you get to it. Shop apparel. There you go. This is the best hat on the website. This hat. You can wear that anywhere and be pointing at some leftist lunatic. These people are crazy. How appropriate is this hat after Saturday's event? How appropriate is this hat after Saturday's event? Do you know, I would like to buy a couple of these hats and send them to the mainstream media, you know, because what they reported on Sunday and today, it's a little bit different what they were whispering in closed corners about, oh my God, now it could have been one of us. It could have been one of us. Will it tone down the rhetoric? Will they change the channel? Will they start putting the country first? Probably not. And this is where this hat would come in handy. You could walk around with this hat and be 100% right 99% of the time, right? Get your merchandise, a great way to support the channel. Wear your politics. It will be a conversation starter, especially if you're volunteering this election cycle. It would be very good to have one. It would be a way to get people to talk to you if you're out door-to-door canvassing or at an event. And it's sharp. This is very nicely made merchandise. It's not cheaply made at all. Get your merchandise, send us a picture, and we'll put you on the air.
That's right. Oh, you mentioned something that made me think. My daughter, well, she's going to be voting. This is her second time voting this year. And she signed up to be an election judge. So this will be her first time being an election judge. And so she's excited. I'm excited for her. So she wants to be, you know, just to take an active role in her citizenship.
Absolutely. I started when I was 16 being an election judge in Dallas, Texas.
Yep. Great.
Crazy.
Great, good.
Caught the bug.
It's a lot of work. It is a lot of work. I've done it several times. I've been a chief judge. It's a lot of work that whole day. It's a long day, but in the end, you kind of feel like, you know what? I'm glad I did it.
Absolutely. It's worth every heartache. It really is, especially if you live in a place where there are more Democrats than Republicans, and you have to literally find a Republican to help take the ballots back to the Board of Elections. There are two Republicans and both of them are cranky and they're like, oh no, I'm not doing one more thing. It's like, come on, please. I just need you to take the ballots. We can't send the ballots with two Democrats. You know, come on.
Look, well, all of you out there in chat land, let us know what you're going to be doing to help in your community for the upcoming elections. Election judge, electioneering, if you will, placing signs, getting people making calls. We need you. What part are you going to do? Just let us know in the chat if you plan on participating, not just voting, but actually maybe doing something else along the way to the voting booth. So we want to hear from you. So our last segment, talking about elections and local issues, we're going to talk about what's going on here in Baltimore City with our illustrious mayor, Brandon Scott, the other Brandon, okay? And both of them are jackasses. All right, just keep it like that. Both of them are jackasses. Here in Baltimore, let's see. We have an OIG. Her name is Isabel Cumming. This is the tale. We have the mayor, Brandon Scott. Well, the OIG, Isabel Cummings, she's been doing a darn good job doing her job, finding fraud, waste, and abuse, okay, in the city government. Well, lo and behold, a couple of weeks ago, she happened to be auditing the famous program called MONSE, if you will, or this program called MONSE, which stands for Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement here in Baltimore City. This is Brandon Scott's signature piece. This is basically him, envisioned as this institution. Okay, nothing can be audited, said bad about MONSE. They walk on water. Now, the OIG didn't think so because she found some charges and some credit card things that just were not adding up. Well, do you know what Brandon Scott did at that time? This joker had her access to all of the city records that she needs to do her job, had her access taken, stalled, stopped, whatever, revoked. So she could not finish investigating him. Now, you might see him on the news parading around saying that this was against the law and she can't have access to records because of state law. And that's what he says. Now, fast forward, Ms. Cummings sued the city. Brandon Scott's administration tried to stop her from suing, saying that as a city employee, she could not give her own representation. The judge said that's yes. She get someone represent her. It's amazing. He didn't want to give her access, but then he told her as a city employee she can't get outside representation. It works from both sides with these people. They are corrupt can get. He went to court and is being adjudicated. In the meantime, Miss Cummings, she reposted a clip from a popular site. Is Hannibal is Hungry? She reposted a clip that had an AI image of Brandon Scott. And I'm going to show you this. And I think it is clip, help me out, producers. That is clip number 5. Let's see clip number 5.
An AI-generated picture of Mayor Brandon Scott shared by the city's Inspector General has people talking, with some calling it inappropriate and racist.
The AI-generated picture includes what appears to be Mayor Scott, surrounded by piles of money, holding shopping bags while smoking a cigar.
The mayor's office isn't commenting on this post. They are saying that they're letting the letter written by Chief of Staff J.D. Merrill
wrote this letter to the city's ethics board and the office of the Inspector General's advisory board, raising concerns of, quote, politically charged content shared by Cummings. Merrill writes, sharing the video and this image is, quote, deeply inappropriate, misleading, damaging, and racist.
What is racist about this photo? Where's the racism? Because I don't see it. I don't see it. I can't believe I have to make a video about this. I can't believe this actually became a news story. But we're here, and we're going to have to talk about it. So Brandon Scott and his administration wants to talk about racism. Let's talk about it.
All right. So you knew it was coming. You knew it was coming. He was going to use this reposting that Isabel Cummings reposted. Again, Hannibal was there on the screen. He created the clip. As you can see, Hannibal is black. Okay, he's a black man. He does cartoons or AI images like this all the time. But you knew that Brandon Scott and his ilk were going to, when that came out, they were going to call the R word. Nicole, what say you?
It's their go-to card. It's their go-to card. Anytime someone is getting too close to exposing the grift, suddenly they're racist. And they don't even care if you're black or white. They don't. It's racist. It's racist to call out a black man on his bullshit. It's absolutely racist. How dare you make an AI generated image that looks 100 times better than I actually do? Better dressed than I've ever dressed, right? Around stacks of money, smoking an expensive cigar. How dare you? I mean, that's something straight out of the Klan playbook. No, sir. It's what we call accountability. And it's political cartoons. Political cartoons generally don't look that nice. They usually exaggerate the character either very evilly or exaggerate them in a way that's very unpleasant. This is actually, better than life. That's a really good AI generated thing. And her calling him out on his stuff and reposting this should not be an issue for her. I've audited medical practices across this nation, and the number one rule to auditing is before you pull that audit, you need to make sure you have the power that you can have access to the data that you need. You don't want to get there and then have to ask them for access. You're coming in with guns already loaded. Now it's up to them how quickly they get shot. Sometimes people say, they see the auditor coming. Listen, this is what we were doing. We know it's wrong. This is our plan of correction. This is what we're going to do to fix it. He doesn't have a humble bone in his body. He does not. He doesn't want to be checked. And with his homeboy, the governor, he's really the epitome of who's going to check me, boo. Who's going to check me with this legislature that's going to let me do whatever it is I want to do with my signature legislation. If I want to bilk the taxpayer, shut up and give me your money. That's what he's saying.
So it's now coming. The Inspector General, should she have reposted clip? Do you think it was a why?
There's some feedback, so I'm not quite sure if she is if the question is complete.
Oh, did you hear me?
I believe I heard.
Oh, I asked, should she have done that? Should she have reposted that clip, Isabel Cumming, particularly as the Inspector General, and she particularly also because she's in the middle of this lawsuit against the city.
Okay. Well, first, it was on her personal page. That's the first thing. And this is my opinion. I believe that it would have been best for her not to have posted it. Now, that's a different thing than don't post. She has a right to post what she will. She could have posted a rainbow for that day and said, happy spring. Okay, that's fine. But what it did is it gave them leverage. And the last thing I want to give a left is leverage. Because
exactly, Blanca.
This has absolutely nothing to do with the imagery. It has to do with the image that he already has. He owns the image. He owns his image, and the image that he has given us is that he is not a man of integrity. And that picture was just a thumbnail of what most of us know. If you live in Baltimore City for maybe 12 days, you pretty much know what's going on.
Absolutely. I agree with you, Blanca, wholeheartedly. I don't think she should have. I think it was a misjudgment, even though it was on her personal page. And I definitely don't think she should have done it in the midst of this trial. It's a total distraction. But you know what? That doesn't even matter because nothing she says is going to be enough for this corrupt mayor, allegedly, in my never be humble opinion. But let's look at image 2 and see how Miss Cumming herself responded. Image number 2. So here, Miss Cumming responded. Basically, she says, I apologize to Mayor Scott, my dedicated OIG team, and residents of Baltimore City. This post detracted from the important mission of the OIG to investigate waste, financial abuse, and fraud. It will not happen again. I sincerely believe Ms. Cumming. I think she totally underestimates the low that they will go to. Okay, her apology is not going to be enough. It's enough to distract and detract from the issue that Mayor Scott, his Monty organization in particular, is corrupt. Allegedly, in my never to be humble opinion, they are corrupt. He has hired more people for the mayor's office and Monty than the city can even substantiate. Okay, I think our city council is, I'll say, a little bit subpar corrupt because they allow this to take place. They don't even ask for the budget of Monty. Everybody's afraid of their little pipsqueak. Okay, everybody walks on eggshells around him. But I do think I'm hoping that this judge does not allow this misjudgment on Miss Cummings' part to detract from the actual validity of her lawsuit. That's number one. Number two, because Miss Cummings is so effective, they want to get rid of her. Bottom line,
Absolutely.
they want to do that. They could. In Annapolis, this past session in Annapolis, there were some laws or there were some proposals to strengthen the OIGs across Maryland. Didn't even get a peep. Nicole, what do you think about that?
Well, you should know better, because show me a Democrat without that doesn't have a NGO or an LLC that's doing business in the state of Maryland, and I'll tell you they just moved here. That's precisely what they do. So they don't want oversight. They don't want anybody looking in the books. And if there is someone who's going to look in the books, it has to be someone that I appointed, someone that answers to me, someone that I can keep under my thumb. What Miss Cummings has done that's egregious to these people is that she's speaking out. She's saying, wait, something's wrong here. And I know this is his signature legislation, but there's something wrong here and it needs investigation. And they're saying, no, who said you could look here? I gave you a job. All you have to do is sit at the desk and be cute. That's all you got to do. There's plenty of Republican businesses for you to go look under. You don't need to look over here. And that's what they're going to continue to do. This is the problem with living in a one-party state. This is the absolute problem. We'll go the way of California, where, people say, oh, well, we know there's fraud, waste, and abuse. We just grown to, it's a part of our normal. It's just is what it is. What Virginians are discovering. It's a part of your new normal. Embrace the suck. Isn't that the term that they've been using? Embrace the suck. It is absolutely outrageous to me that the Office of Inspector General is under anybody's thumb. That's not how auditing works. You have to go in there, your own individual, unto yourself, in order to look clearly at something. But when you go in and you've got a bias, you've got prejudice, you've got slants, you never really get to the bottom of the problem.
Well, like the racist playbook as it goes, that's not all they blame for racism. Anything and everything that they don't want to agree with, that they don't want to acknowledge, that they certainly don't want out in the open, it becomes racism. But this one I thought was a bit bizarre. Let's see clip number 6. You tell me what you all think about this.
The problem is we are not dealing with America's original sin and its disease of hate and racism towards black and brown people and sexism towards women and anti-LGBTQ sentiment. We are not dealing with that. Your colleagues in the Republican Party do not hold each other accountable when it comes to the racism that comes from the party on a consistent basis.
Congressman, I mean, where are you on
You can't be calm about this. I'm a black man in America. The reason why heart disease...
I'm white, I can't comment
Listen to what I'm saying. The reason why heart disease and cancer and obesity and diabetes are bigger in the black community is because of the stress we carry from having to deal with being called the N-word directly or indirectly every day. If your colleagues would listen and try to learn and engage and grow and stop being so hateful, we could have a better country.
Jamal,
but unfortunately, we're still here.
Jamal,
it's coming from one
Jamal, I feel your passion, and I understand where you're coming from, sincerely. I really, really do. It happens on both sides, Jamal. You might think it happens more on your side. Jamal, when I leave the show, Jamal, you should see my Twitter feed.
And they're acquitted. Rodney King, Abner Louima, Eric Gardner, Trayvon Martin, black cops in Memphis. It's not the same. And I don't want to qualify or quantify pain. That's not what I'm talking about. Everyone goes through pain. But the racism in this country is a disease that will destroy us. And it's destroying us right now as we speak. January 6th, everybody was pardoned. Everybody's pardoned. Riots in L.A., they're insurrectionists. But we pardoned everyone January 6th.
So, Congressman,
you milk the bald, shiny bowling ball head is going to sit there and say racism, now the Republican Party is responsible for all the health issues in the black community and black men. Nobody is calling you racist and all niggers. Nigger, that's what you want me to call you. I'll call you. I'm a black woman. How about that? You are crap up Okay, no. You may have illnesses and high stress, whatever, of you and your choices. And that white man sitting there next to him, look, you little weakling, okay? You should have told him to stop, okay? Go somewhere with that crap because nobody's buying it. You white men on there want to sit there and coddle his ass because he's lying and making this stuff up and making you all to be the perpetrator of his own victim mentality. Bullshit. Take that milk dud here. Matter of fact, stop eating so many damn milk duds. Maybe you won't be obese and have diabetes or whatever. That's what you need to do. Get out there and walk a little bit. Nicole, these people get on my nerves. Every damn thing is racism. What is it?
You know, it's so funny that one of the best things that flashed across the bottom of the screen was former, right? Former congressman, because people aren't buying your shit anymore. I mean, I miss the days when the Klan would break into your house and shove fried chicken and red velvet cake down your throat just so that you could have a high A1C when you went in for your physical. You can't blame other people for your shortcomings. The lack of accountability, especially personal accountability, you know, it's gotten to the point where they're so hyperbolic, they're running out of things to attach racism to. So now diabetes is racist, hypertension is racist.
Yes.
With very few exceptions, wholly personal life decisions. You can have a salad, you can have fried chicken. You choose fried chicken, you're going to get fried chicken consequences. You know, if you choose to eat in the middle of your bed at 3 o'clock in the morning and roll over, you know, after eating a Jimmy John sub, yeah, life is going to be hard for you, homie. And it doesn't matter if you're black, white, or indifferent. What I wish they would have had on that panel was another black person who could call him on his absolute bullshit. Because somebody calling you the N-word is not triggering you, because I'm sure Jamal Bowman, who lives in New York, listens to rap music or has heard rap music where he has been called a bevy of every sort of nigga there is. From rich nigga to trap nigga and everything in between. And he's still alive. He hasn't been killed by a heart attack. He hasn't been killed for out of control hypertension or out of control diabetes. Got both arms and both feet. What is he talking about? He's talking out the crack of his black ass, and I've had enough. I have had enough of these fools getting airtime to just pontificate on things that don't even matter. We have real problems in the black community. Real problems in the black community that we need his voice to fix. So I need him to stop trying to find the boogeyman and realize he is the boogeyman. He is the problem. Absolutely. He's the one that needs to fix it. Meanwhile, he's sitting on her show talking shit. I mean, I would have loved for Tim or any other black Republican man to be on that show and shut that thing down.
And he has a milk dud head. How about that? Blanca, before I get to you, because we do have some actual real problems in the black community, particularly as they revolve around medical issues. But I want to shout out Butterbean here. Thank you, Butterbean, for a $100 super chat tonight. Thank you. Super chat. Butterbean says, wonderful show, ladies. Awesome to see Blanca join. Oh, thank you, Blanca. I mean, thank you, Butterbean, for Blanca. So, Blanca, outside of milk dud making a mockery out of some real serious medical issues and challenges that people do have, and particularly in the black community, but across the board, no less. We're going to talk a little bit about diabetes and pancreatic cancer, but certainly about the pancreas in general and related to insulin and diabetes. I thought this topic, this particular issue, this topic was really important. Number one, it came out last week. There's an article in some health news, and I haven't really heard people talking about it, but I think it could be a medical game changer, okay? This is what I mean. When you consider diabetes in particular and how significant it is, how widespread it is, and how it's so costly to our medical system, this milk dud here wants to make a mockery out of it and say it's because of racism. But the research is showing that people with diabetes, they may be getting too much insulin. So all of you out there in chat land, if you are type 2 diabetic, and type 1 a little bit different, like Nicole said, this type 1 is different, but certainly type 2 diabetes or diabetics, you might be getting some updated medical care. Blanca, I want you to talk a little bit about the seriousness, not the one that Milk Dud here was talking about, but just the seriousness of some of these medical issues to our community.
Yes. Well, first of all, I am a prevention and wellness coordinator for a managed care organization. And so this is not a medical or a recommendation, but it is just like a diamond, your health. It is multifaceted. It does have to do with some of the even genetics that we each carry. Glaucoma runs in my family as far as my great grandmother. That is something that I have to, I'm glad I know. I'm glad I know about it. And so the sad part about this comment, and I don't want to, yes, he's a former congressman and we thank him for his service. This is the person who pulled the fire alarm because and then he deceptively said he hadn't when the cameras
Clearly
don't lie.
showed he
There's
did.
something about cameras that don't lie. But you know what else he pulled? He pulled everybody's leg on that table. He said, learn, engage, and grow. 3 things that he is not emulating. If you want to learn, then you learn facts. If you want to engage, you engage without hatred. And if you want to grow, you grow in order for you to be not a spokesperson for every Black person. I don't represent every Latino, but I'm part of the community. The seriousness of diabetes, especially if somebody has diabetes and they do not have regular foot care, can be dangerous. Can be dangerous. Amputation can set in. There is, this, I know people, my brother, but because I was adopted, like I mentioned earlier, this is my adoptive family's, their son. He died of diabetes. My, this is my blood cousin in El Salvador. She passed away at age 56 of diabetes in February. This is my great aunt's daughter. So this, this is serious. So for him to kind of, it's sad when people gloss over and say, people are stressed because they're being called this. Listen, if you and I, we put it all together, Shirley, Nicole, and I are what we've been called, we would be in the NICU right now.
Listen,
we would be in the NICU. I'm sorry, not the NICU. I meant the ICU. I meant the ICU.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me tell everybody, I want to give them a little bit of information about diabetes in particular, because this is what the pancreas is directly related to that. Let me tell you why it's important. I think it could be a game changer. According to the American Diabetes Association, I think this was an economic report in 2022. So about 3 or 4 years old, the report said it found that the annual cost of diabetes is about $412 billion a year. Okay, that includes medical costs and some indirect costs. That's number one. Number two, people with diabetes now account for 1 out of every 4 healthcare dollars. So 25% of every healthcare dollar goes to treating someone with diabetes. As Blanca mentioned, there are some other correlating challenges with diabetes, particularly if you're not managed well. You can have foot problems, podiatry problems. So that's also an additional cost, if you will, not to mention the insulin, the obesity that goes along with it, and the overall toll that it takes on your body. A lot of times diabetics, they might develop some kidney challenges, not to mention, again, the pancreas. Why I think this is important, because number one, diabetes type 2 is largely reversible. It can be reversed. One of the main factors is the weight. If you can reduce your weight, and I'm not talking about having drastic weight loss, certainly not in a month or two, but over time, in reducing your weight and changing your diet. And it can be in increments, small changes. But the key thing is that it's the pancreas. The pancreas is supposed to produce insulin. Whenever you eat, no matter what you eat, we all have to eat. We're human beings, right? We have to eat. I don't care what you eat, except water. Your blood glucose is going to go up. How much it goes up and how soon it comes down has to do with your insulin and your pancreas that is in your body naturally. What some of this research is showing of late is that many people, many diabetics, again, I'm talking about type 2, not type 1. Type 1 diabetics have to have insulin because they don't produce any, okay? Type 2, what happens is the research is showing that you might be getting too much, which is causing or contributing to more insulin resistance, where that your body is kind of like this and doesn't know what to do, okay?
Right.
So again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not diagnosing any of you. I'm not telling you to stop taking your medications. What I am saying and what I am hoping you to do is you will have a serious conversation with your endocrinologist. Nicole, what say you?
Absolutely. So this is what I know about diabetes and its effect on people who think it's a game. Blanca was mentioning what can happen to your feet. You can wake up one day and take your socks off and your toe will still be in the sock. It happens. Yeah. You can have diabetic retinopathy and lose partial vision. You can get low vision. You'll have floaters in your visual fields where you won't be able to see clearly. You'll develop neuropathy where you're constantly having paresthesia or you're tingling. You know, there's so many things that can happen if this chronic illness is not properly managed. So that's the scary part. The good news is these GLP-1s and 2s that we're having now help in a myriad of ways, not just by lowering your A1C, by giving you some metabolic control. It also helps you control your weight. It you know, you want to eat the hoagie, you take 2 bites, maybe a bite and a half, and you're reconsidering eating the rest of that hoagie. You know, changing your lifestyle is difficult. Changing your lifestyle is really hard because, you know, we're Americans. We like what we like, especially when we can afford the nicer things in life. I would love to have Godiva chocolate for dinner every night. It would be Godiva chocolate and a glass of Moet. Sounds like the perfect meal to me. But you can't survive on chocolates and Moet. The sugar content in that would definitely have my A1C through the roof. I'm not diabetic, but I do watch what I eat for that reason. Your body has to stay in harmony. This is really good news because long time ago, people were saying that. What if, and that was just a thesis, right? What if by giving them too much insulin, we're reducing the pancreatic effect? We're making the pancreas work less because they already have some. Are we actually causing more disease by trying to fix it? Is the cure worse than the illness? And people were laughed, you know, they were like, oh, ha, ha, we've been giving people insulin forever, because that was the thing. That was metformin. And then from metformin, you went on to an injectable insulin. Medical science is just that. It's a science. People are still working on it. It's a practice. It grows. There are some very interesting things coming out about this. But I will say this. Again, none of this is medical advice. But if you're a type 2 diabetic, the weather has broken, spring has sprung. The best thing you can do is walk. Walk, get some air, use all of your major muscle groups, and keep your appointments with your caregivers, whether it's telehealth or in person. Knowing is better than walking around good guessing. Good guessing is going to have you missing toes or some of your leg below the knee. Do not play with these chronic illnesses.
Yeah. And let me say a couple of more stats that Milk Dud Head wanted to mock and say that they were racist when he could have said something that was really important for Black people, particularly as it relates to diabetes, obesity. So let me give you a couple more stats. In 2024, Black Americans were 25 or 24% more likely. So a fourth of the time, more likely than the average U.S. adult to have diabetes. In 2022, African Americans or Black people died from diabetes 78% more often. So more than three times the rate they die more. They die more than 3 times the rate of your average American. In 2021, these are some stats from the Office of Minority Health, HHS.gov, right under RFKJ organization. So again, these stats are there. So Milk Dud Head could have said things like this, where he could be encouraging Black people, Black men, to get their checkups, to get the right treatments if they need them, whatever, things like that. Also, again, as Blanca was talking about, diabetes comes with other costs, like we said, or other issues. Hypertension runs in the Black community, particularly among Black men. So diabetes and any other comorbidities, as we call them, it increases your mortality. Diabetes, hypertension, obesity, all these things together increase your mortality, and they do hit Black Americans a little bit more, a little bit harder than your average population. So we have things to do in our community. We're telling you this because, again, some of you say on here every now and then, we always hard on Black people or hard on Black folk. Well, we're giving you sort of a public health announcement today, or, a public service announcement. We want to improve in the areas that we can improve, and everything is not racist, okay? No white person gave you diabetes, okay? Certainly no white person told you to eat a whole bucket of chicken. No, okay? And 10 scoops of potato salad. You can have those things in moderation, okay? Again, we're not doctors. We are not telling you to stop your medication and or do this or don't do this. We're saying have the conversation and start looking at the ways that you can manage your health better and have more positive outcomes, not like Milk Dud here was alluding to, and it's not racist to do so.
Listen, it's not racist to have you a physical. It's not racist. Men, hear me clearly. Generally, if we have about 50 or 60 physicals in the office during the course of the week, 50 of them are women. And it's simply because men don't prioritize their health. They prioritize making money. They prioritize protecting and providing. I get it. But listen, we need you here. Yes. Go get your physical. Sit down with the provider. Let them tell you generally where your health status is. Let them do the blood work. Let them do the EKG and all the workup that they need to do to give you a clear picture of how we can prolong your life and the quality of your life. Because you may not even realize it, but you probably may feel bad. I mean, a lot of people with hypertension say, oh, I don't feel like anything until they feel better. You're like, man, I feel amazing. Sometimes just having the information and making small changes means everything. So if a part of our PSA, gentlemen, go get your physicals, please.
Definitely. Yes.
That's right. Madeline, you're right. I'm sorry, Madeline, you're right. Black people, Spanish people, as we like to say, Black and brown people, if you will. So yes, this certainly affects that group, if you will, more so than the average American. What were you going to say, Blanca?
I just wanted to remind every poppy to stay healthy. We're poppy. We want every poppy. We want every poppy to be healthy.
Absolutely.
All right. So any final thoughts before we go, everybody? Blanca, you want to start? Any final thoughts?
I'm just so glad to join you. Shirley, Nicole, I just absolutely both. I love you. I respect you. I admire you. I have learned so much from you. And I want to thank every listener, every comment that was made, even somebody that commented on this big machine that I had nothing to do with. I work from home. My employer provided it. Somebody was calling it a dryer. You know what? If it dries, I'll use it.
That's right.
But anyway,
what about
every comment, you know what I mean? Sometimes those comments get kind of like personal. And, I just think, you know what? If somebody made a comment, they noticed something. And we hope that you notice that we care. We are genuine. We want you to be informed, and we definitely want you to be healthy, both in mind, body, and spirit.
Right.
Amen.
Nicole, thanks, Blanca.
Listen, campaign season's heating up, folks. I'm going to tell you now. If you live in a community where there is a solid Republican candidate running, volunteer some of your time. If you don't have any time, volunteer some of your money. We'll take either one, or sometimes both. But this is the time. Get in. You can volunteer to send text messages. You can make phone calls. You can sit at a booth at an event. You can help at an event. Do something beyond just casting your own ballot. The people who watch this show are incredibly politically savvy. That's why you watch the show. You're politicos just like we are, right? This is your moment. This primary season, let's make sure, number one, that we contest every seat. Contest every seat. Let's not let them have an inch. Go after every seat and support the right candidates. So when we get to the general election, we have a rock star list of people who can not only win in the general, but can do great things for our community. And that work starts now. So volunteer where you can. If you live in an area and you're wondering who you can support, go on the Discord and tell me where you are, and I'll tell you who I like.
All right, everybody. So you heard it from Blanca. Thank you, Blanca, for joining us tonight. Nicole, always. And the only thing I'm going to say is I want to just shout out, and again, thank you all in our super chat for joining us tonight. It's the last of the month. We always kind of get here and you always feel like, oh my gosh, but May is Friday, May Day. And we just thank you for your support. Don't forget, you can also support us on the other NCM platforms, Just the Guys and Christian Conservative with KJ. Go to that site, metroconservativemedia.com, and you can find out all the information about all our shows when we go live if you hit the notification bell. But you can certainly find out the information. We thank you for your support. Thank you, Butterbean. Thank you, all of our mods out there. And we will be back on Wednesday. Have a great night, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Good night.
Bye-bye.